Hello and welcome to News Roast. My name is Jolyon Rubinstein.
My name is Heydon Prowse.
And like you didn't know, this is 3 courses of metaphorical conversation. How you doing, Heyd?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, good weekend, yeah.
Very good weekend. I'm very excited about our guest this week. Do we have any housekeeping to do before we do the introduction?
Well, we do. What I do need to say is that
something.
I know for a fact over 20,000 people have actually listened to the first episode, which I'm really pleased
that's great,
about.
yeah.
But literally 4 people actually rated and reviewed the podcast.
How many of
really
those
need your
20,000 are your friends
that
you forced into listening on
at
Sunday?
Least 7 people that my mum's asked who probably didn't really like it that much.
Right.
Most of my friends generally try not to listen to my voice when they don't have to. Right. So I'd say 4. How many of your friends listen to this?
I know I haven't been introduced yet, but I'm nodding to that bit.
That was our guest, by the way, which this week
is the illustrious, gorgeous manhunk that is.
What a manhunt.
Rick Edwards, presenter, genuinely good bloke.
Author
of a very powerful book, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Cambridge science graduate, no less.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Player of chess.
All checks out so far.
Yeah.
Player of chess in Pizza East in Kentish Town.
No, Backgammon.
Backgammon's like chess
what?
for morons.
We were big.
Are you kidding me?
It's like a Spurgeon chess.
No, listen.
He doesn't even know about doubling dice, I bet you.
No, he wouldn't.
No idea.
So I went to, I'll just start with a brag, International Backgammon Tournament in Copenhagen.
No.
Yes,
What?
I did.
Way.
Last Easter.
Are you like a backgammon master?
Not yet, but I'm getting there. We were watching quite a lot of the top level games between the guys who play it very seriously for a lot of money. And their attitude towards chess is quite funny. In that I think they start playing chess, but then because they're gamblers,
right?
So you get runs of luck in backgammon. And there was one guy who is apparently one of the top 10 players in the world who's complained to another guy after he just lost to him, saying, I've had like 6 months of bad luck. And the guy goes, well, you know what they say, if you don't like it, go and play chess. And said it so dismissively. And I think it's a fair point, because in chess, it's just brute intellect.
Yeah.
If you play against someone who is better than you at chess, you will lose.
Got no excuse
every time.
Yeah.
Whereas if I play the world number 1 at backgammon, I might win one game.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. That is really exciting.
I've never heard anyone describe intellect as like brute intellect.
Yeah, but it is. But it is though. It's just that chess is brute intellect. So that's why computers are so good at it.
So it's that possibility that you could beat someone better than you, and also if you lose, you've always got the excuse of bad luck.
Well, yeah. I mean, the element of luck isn't that big. That if I play someone who is better than me to a best of 13, I will definitely lose.
Right.
And I won't be able to blame luck.
I used to live quite near Rick, right, in K-Town, in the old K-Weezy. And Rick sometimes is to be seen with his very good personal friend Tim Key.
You had to leave Kentish Town because you called it K-Weezy.
I had to leave.
And everyone else said,
but I would
we
like
can't
regularly
really have
go
that around here. It's a nice place.
I'd see them playing, and I'd literally go and be like, "Oh, hi guys."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, hi," and I was like, "Oh, hi guys."
What, you wanted to be involved?
I was just hoping maybe there'd be, I don't know, some sort of bring-in, which never came at all.
It's always a bit too intense.
So I literally just left.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm saying sorry.
Joel,
I don't feel sorry.
Johnny, this is why you do the podcast. It's fine.
This is the only way I make friends.
This is the only forum in which you're allowed to have friends from now on.
So basically, the only place I actually have friends is in a very strange...
where your voice is recorded.
Nice piece of
then
carpet
it's okay.
here.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a conversation this long if it was just social.
With the Kasparov of Backgammon here is our first guest, Rick Edwards, which we're very excited to have on, because he's an old friend of ours. We've worked with him on a bunch of stuff.
We have.
Yeah.
I worked with him on a horse meat documentary.
Yes.
Which was very good.
Before that...
I don't know if it was very good.
It wasn't very good, was it?
Your bit was good, actually.
You were good. You were very good at managing a team of juveniles talking about horse meat and
team in the very loosest sense, I think.
Has the taste of horse changed your mind about horse meat? No.
The problem was always the labelling, which actually isn't very entertaining.
No, but what you may not know necessarily about Rick, because obviously he's got his excellent podcast, Science-ish, doing very well indeed, very funny as well. But as well as, sometimes quite subtly, but definitely ripping the piss out of the cast of Made in Chelsea, which I do personally enjoy. You also wrote a book about politics.
I did, weirdly. Yeah, in 2015, because I was doing a show for BBC Three called Free Speech, which was effectively Young Voters Question Time.
Such a shame it was canned.
You came on?
Yeah, it was great. It was a shame though, man, because that was the forum where young people got to talk about politics, and that's gone now.
Totally gone. There's nowhere. I had not exactly a falling out, but a definite disagreement with the sort of powers that be at BBC Three when BBC Three went online. And in fairness, it doesn't really make sense to do Free Speech, which is a live TV programme, online, because I don't know how you'd get an audience to that.
Absolutely.
You campaigned really hard on the closure of BBC.
I thought it was. I mean, who knows that? I don't really know how BBC. I don't know how you measure it. I don't know what metric you use to say whether BBC Three is going well or not. I know that I don't go on BBC Three. I sort of see some BBC Three content on Facebook. I don't know if that counts.
Well, so as soon as they stopped employing you just vetoed it?
Yeah, I never watched it anyway. But yeah, they decided that they didn't want to do any kind of direct sort of on-the-nose politics stuff.
Oh, really?
For young people, because they felt that young people weren't interested. I think that's patronising. Yeah. B, don't think it's true. C, I think they sort of have a duty to do it anyway because no one else is going to do it. And I think it's a real shame that there doesn't exist a
it's
forum.
It's funny because they've done, you know, I mean, there have been absolutely no doubt there's been standout hits since it's gone out of line. I'm thinking of, you know, Fleabag, Man Like Mobeen, and obviously the rise of People Just Do Nothing. But it does seem that has become kind of the streamline now, hasn't it? You know, it's a great place for new comedy, but not so much for discussion.
This brings us quite nicely on to Rick's first course.
Oh, yeah. Do I introduce, obviously...
You've listened to tons of these, I can
tell. Yeah. So I know the format intimately well.
I can see that.
But just remind me.
Well, let me ask you. So basically, it's 3 courses of conversation.
Yeah.
So do you like a starter? What's your favourite kind of starter in real life?
Either. I mean, if I'm in somewhere, if I'm really balling and I'm in like a Cafe Rouge.
Yeah. With your backgammon.
Edwards, don't lie to us. That's not balling for you, Edwards. We've seen you out and about.
Man of the people.
Man of the people.
All right.
Cafe Rouge.
All right. Fine. I'm in Cafe Bohème on Oxford Street, and I'll take the French onion soup if it's available.
I'm a big fan.
Or
yeah.
if I'm in a Carluccio's, which I also like, I enjoy chain restaurants.
Yeah,
because you know you like good chain restaurants because you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though. Sometimes you go to a very expensive restaurant, you think, well, I don't know. Yeah. The only thing I'd say about Pain Quotidien is A, hard to say. B, I think it's a bit overpriced.
It's the most poncy of the chain restaurants.
Yeah,
which is perhaps why I like it.
This has just gone so metropolitan liberally.
Yeah.
What is your metaphorical starter for us?
My metaphorical starter is people jumping to conclusions about turnout in the immediate wake of elections. So this, I think, happens after every election pretty much. And people, understandably, once an election is done, want to know how specific groups of people voted. And so almost instantaneously, figures will start being kind of drip-fed out there. And there was one after the 2017 general election that was particularly interesting, which was 72%. They said 72% of 18 to 24-year-olds have voted, which on the face of it, you go, fuck me, that's incredible. Yeah. That's higher than the overall turnout of the country. And given that previously it was like 44%, like, it's a staggering increase.
Just smelt, something smelt fishy
about
it.
I immediately just thought, I can't see how you get that big a leap. And then people did a bit of digging quite quickly actually on that, and it turned out it was essentially just made up. It's kind of plucked out of nowhere. But because of the way that information kind of proliferates and spreads on Twitter, it got everywhere. And so
Lammy
David
tweeted it.
David Lammy tweeted it, and it's also the classic thing. As soon as you like, retractions always get less traction than the original thing. But the 72% came from nowhere. And I think what people forget, or just actually, I don't. It's not about forgetting. It's just don't know. Like, I didn't know any of this until the wake of the 2015 election, after which I'd done a load of sort of campaigning around trying to get the youth vote out, and
that's when you wrote the book.
That's when I wrote the book. And so as soon as it was done, I was like, well, I really want to know if anything happens. Like, was there a lift in turnout? Because you try and because of my book, and you try and find the data, and you just can't.
Really hard, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's no obviously it's a secret ballot. Exit polls now they just ask how you voted. They don't ask any other information. So you're relying upon polls that maybe Ipsos Mori have done previously, when you are, which are famously hard to get to be representative, because people will either lie about their voting intention, or you'll only get to speak to people who are quite politically engaged, so you end up talking to too many voters anyway. There's loads of sort of biases, and it's very hard to weight it correctly. So it's an estimate, and what you actually have to do is wait for about 6 months or a year until the British election study have literally gone around banging on people's doors asking people face to face, which is seen as being a slightly more reliable way of doing it. But the fact remains it's still just 10,000 people probably that you're then extrapolating out to the population.
So it's basically nonsense, isn't it?
It's kind of nonsense. You can kind of make any figure stick, like even the figures. So the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because there was this, the term youthquake was used a lot, and was the Oxford English Dictionary word of the year, and it was to describe, the fact that seemingly Jeremy Corbyn had mobilised all of these young voters. And now, looking at the British election study, which has just come out, it looks like that probably didn't happen. It looks like, if anything, turnout amongst the youngest demographic, 18 to 24, might have decreased by 1%, although they're pretty hazy about that. And it was the sort of 30 to 40-year-olds where turnout was lifted.
I was actually really pleased when I read that, because it makes me feel a lot more positive about the chances of the next election really genuinely becoming a swing towards Labour in a meaningful way. Because if you are going to politicise, obviously because 40 is the new 30, if you are going to politicise...
And why is it that we all think that?
Because the papers say it's true.
No, it's because we're all nearing 40.
I don't know what you're talking about. On Twitter, I tell people regularly that I'm 24, and that's a huge lie.
That's actually illegal on Tinder, by the way.
Oh,
just
is it?
So you know that.
I didn't know that.
No,
How do you know that?
I don't know.
But I'm just really loving it, just imagining the Tinder police going around to people's houses and going, "Listen, you old slimy bastard, you told me you were 24."
But they can only do it by knocking on people's doors, and it takes 6 months to get the information. It's a nightmare.
Only 10,000 of them.
No, I think what's interesting is, and it was, accompanied by that famous photo of, people with the Jeremy Corbyn signs at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
As we all know, very few 18 to 24-year-olds can afford to go to Glastonbury. There is the thing that is kind of amazing. I mean, on both sides of this. I mean, the fact is that the pictures that got beamed all around the country, Jeremy Corbyn on the pyramid stage, the type of PR that hasn't happened for a political party, certainly in my lifetime, of it being quote unquote cool. Stormzy, biggest grime artist in the country, coming out and starting that as a chant, hugely significant. I think you can't underestimate the significance of stuff like that. But as I asked recently to someone else, given how the clusterfuck of a year that the Conservative Party had, why are Labour only a few points ahead in the polls and not 40 points ahead in the polls, do you think?
Well, I think it's an excellent question, and I certainly don't have the answer. But I guess that the reason that you're feeling optimistic is that actually, if the youth turnout wasn't that massive, there is still plenty of work to be done, and possibly Corbyn would be able to mobilise that.
I just wonder, I mean, I'm asking you, really, I mean, and I do want you to answer questions, not just say, I have absolutely no idea.
He's a scientist.
I mean, it's just, what's the bloody point? He's just a scientist.
I haven't done the experiment, guys. So
how would you do the experiment? Let's go through this. What is your hypothesis?
My hypothesis is that the Conservative Party are doing better than they should be.
Okay, and what's your method?
And my method is...
Bunsen burners?
I'm not going to use any Bunsen burners yet. Ideally, what you want is an island, an unpopulated island.
Yes.
And then you take as many people as possible onto the island that are sort of representative of the UK.
Sounds like a TV show coming up that you're pitching for.
Someone write this down.
I
host it.
Actually, no, do you know what? You want babies.
Yeah.
You don't want adults. You want just... You want to
put a bit weird
about it is, but sometimes science is weird.
I'm into it so
you
far.
want an island of babies, and you just want them to grow up, and then you just measure everything.
First of all, also there has to be beakers.
And see what emerges.
I want glass beakers in this.
You can have beakers, but only if the babies want them.
But also
sounds highly achievable.
But hang on, because also the most important part I always thought,
it's sort of Lord of the Flies, isn't
it? Science class was when you had to draw the diagram. Do you remember having to draw your experiment? So how would you draw saw this situation exactly.
Well, I mean, I'd be doing a lot of copy and paste with an image of a baby, wouldn't I?
Yeah. I don't think you get past a week before you got arrested by U-Tree.
Well, hang on, no. The whole point is I'm not interfering with them.
Right, okay.
That's like literally the point of the experiment.
Babies do their thing.
I'm letting them do their thing.
How do you know about interfering with babies?
Oh, come on, this is getting ridiculous. You're going to start some trend or something. Let's nip this in the bud. But it is an interesting question, because you did study this a lot for to write this book, presumably, and you must. And it's interesting you brought this up because you understand it more than most people. But it is impossible to predict. We keep thinking we see these trends. They don't follow our expectations. So is all this stuff just hot air? Is Jeremy Corbyn going to kind of disappear in a puff of smoke? We're going to have Boris Johnson as our next Prime Minister. God forbid we're going to have Mr. Gammon himself,
Abortion
Rees-Mogg
banned throughout the country.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem that you can predict politics anymore. And why has that happened?
I don't know if we've ever been especially good at predicting stuff unless the margins are big.
Yeah.
If it's a big margin, it's pretty easy. If you do look at predictions from previous elections, you find that generally speaking, they're always sort of within the same kind of margin of error. It's not quite as bad as economics.
Right.
Economics is obviously, and with all due respect to all the economics professors who are listening, absolute bollocks, isn't it? I mean,
science,
they can't.
Yeah.
They
just
can't
making
get,
up as
they
they
can't
go
get
along.
anything right.
Yeah.
That's why the whole part of it's called futures. It's just like this is going to happen. No, it's not.
It's just a sort of elaborate,
do you think there's
vaguely
going to be an
mathematical.
election this year?
I don't know.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
But then you're just predicting something that, again, it's just you have no
Here's
ability
the trigger
to
of
do.
events.
Go on.
Okay, last week, Jacob Rees-Mogg gave 100,000 signatures into number 10.
Right.
And do you know who that was sponsored by? The Daily Express.
Oh, my God.
To a cut in foreign aid budget. Bizarrely.
Not helped by the Oxfam article recently.
Really not.
Anyway,
Company money on prostitutes. And
we'll come
couldn't
to
get
that.
any worse.
We'll come to that.
Did you see the interview with the woman on Newsnight that
One
Emily
of the
Maitlis
prostitutes?
did? She was
right.
someone. Is she like runs Oxfam? I guess.
Yeah, it was pretty
Was it
bad.
Winnie?
I don't know.
But you know, this story's been around for months and months. Like, this is just—it's very
Really?
interesting that's being picked up at this point. Anyway, the point
What
is,
did
leadership
she say? Was it?
The main thing was Maitlis sort of said, "Do you know of other instances of this?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Yeah." I said since 2011.
yeah.
And Maitlis was like,
Most unbelievable thing is wasn't he using like Oxfam company money?
Yeah,
It's like
Thing
I
is, though,
think
the problem
that's the
here
accusation,
it's like,
isn't it?
shall I put it on the personal credit card?
Yeah.
Or shall I fuck it? I'm just going to expense it. What could go wrong?
I think we were a little bit, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean,
I felt like we were a bit.
guys,
Yeah.
So out there.
I definitely
It's
wasn't.
so ridiculous.
But the point I'm making really is that I think there is no doubt that there's going to be a leadership challenge this year to Theresa May.
By Rees-Mogg.
By Rees-Mogg, Johnson, Gove, there's a lot of them who I think they're in the shout.
Yeah.
At that point, there is genuine cause, once there is a new leader, for two things. One, a vote of no confidence in a government without a majority. Because the DUP have already said that this hard border in Northern Ireland is something that is going to be a real issue for them. Simultaneously, we've got people saying we're exiting the customs union and the single market. Now, you cannot have freedom of movement and not have a hard border in Ireland. It's impossible.
So at that
right?
point,
So at that point, there may well be a vote of no confidence. And at that point, there is absolutely every reason for the people of this country to say, well, with our second unelected leader, right? Actually, that's not. Well, no, it was because obviously
Second
we have
referendum.
had an election. But
Second election, sorry.
second election.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think a second referendum. So, I mean, I genuinely think this year it's going to just be chaos. But
what seems to be happening to me, and again, this is just guesswork, idle guesswork, is that May is being used by the Conservatives to steer the horrible ship that is Brexit.
Yeah.
And as soon as that is done, whatever that means, they will get rid of her. She feels like a supply. She feels like a supply teacher.
Yeah.
Where and what's really kind of
we used to bully our supply teachers so badly.
Yeah, I feel like she must be getting bullied like behind
In the
closed
class.
doors.
Mrs. May, what are you going to do about Brexit?
Look at what Priti Patel did last year. She's just like, no, I had secret meetings about you. What?
And what?
What?
Yeah, I went to the toilet without asking.
She's
and
not a real
what?
teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that upsets me about that is that it would imply that the Conservative Party attitude is we don't really fancy her to lead our party. But we will let her lead the single most important thing that any government has done since the Second World War. You get that done, and then get rid. I think that's the most likely.
She's basically like a hostage. They're just using her to take the bullets. On this impossible task.
Yeah.
And that's really maybe that's the best leader you could possibly hope for in a situation like this.
The thing is, things are much
There's no
worse.
right outcome.
So I have a friend whose sister actually works at the department for exiting the EU. And according to her, she's a civil servant. According to her, things are so much worse than we could possibly imagine at this point because people are playing politics for that exact reason. Like apparently the European delegation genuinely expected the British government to come across and genuinely start negotiating, not for them to play politics. As in, because 27 years to pull stuff apart, 27 nation states needing to ratify things, it's a real clusterfuck for anyone. But the fact is that the most basic stuff still haven't been agreed. And we had a great interview a little while ago with James Ball, who was special correspondent
BuzzFeed journalist.
For BuzzFeed.
Oh, who wrote what's the name of his book? I got it for Christmas.
How Bullshit Took Over the World.
I haven't started reading
really
it.
Wonderful guy as well. Really wonderful guy as well. And what he said that a lot of people don't realise is Article 50 is basically like a ticking time bomb. On the 19th of March at 11:59 in 2019, 27 countries have to ratify us staying in. At that point, if we've got no deal with them, we're jettisoned with no basic agreements with the countries that a lot of our, small and medium-sized businesses export to. And I think it could genuinely be like, I think it could
amazing.
Be
Freedom!
Burgeoning free market deals all over the world.
It's the greatest collective act of democracy this country has ever seen. We've all collectively decided to jump off a cliff together, and that's
beautiful.
Did either of you hear Nick Clegg talking to James O'Brien? I said some very intelligent things about the fact that in his mind the actual ability of politicians to quote unquote lead has never been more diminished. That really the idea that it's like the quote unquote the will of the people, it's like we've lost 77 billion off the national sort of like I don't know what the word is for it, not like
bank account.
Let's just go with that. We've lost 77 billion. I mean, someone's going to tweet and going, that is fake news. There is no national bank account. But you know what I mean.
But there should be, and there will be after Brexit. Am I right?
A national British bank account.
Blue passports and a British bank account for everyone.
And a British checkbook to write bouncing checks to the nasty foreigners.
We all get a card. We can all go to the ATM and take money out of the British bank account.
But whenever we go to Spain, we write checks.
and no brown people have any bank accounts. No. Just ethnic.
How many pesos is that?
Hang on, what's that? Cheddar man. We have to move on from this absolute nonsense that we're talking to your main course. Do you like a main
I'm
course?
sure our audience is much clearer now on the situation with Brexit and elections, so we can
youth vote has definitely been solved. Let's see if we can do as good a job.
I mean, it was fairly discursive stuff. I'm one of these old-fashioned people, by the way, who really likes Nick Clegg. I think he's great.
I think he's great.
Hayden, we literally spent 2 years trying to give him a box of antidepressants.
I did chase after him.
Literally 2 years. Nick, never getting to him. Always getting turned.
And these men in suits kept dragging him away, obviously, to section him.
There was once when we were in Oxford at this talk he was doing, and Hayden went round the side of a building, and I swear on my life, this guy just came so far. Just smashed him against
pushed me against the wall. He was so undercover. He was like carrying.
Doesn't need antidepressants.
The Deputy Prime Minister is fine. I'd just like to take this opportunity actually to apologise to Nick Clegg for bullying him for so long, because I do really like him. I think how much better would things be if Nick Clegg was back in the government?
Yeah, I don't know.
What a legend.
I mean, I still think he's a prick. No, I don't really. I still think the tuition fees thing is pretty unforgivable.
What was he supposed to do?
Yeah.
Just not do that.
No one answers that question.
Zero power.
Yeah.
No one
answers that.
But he thought that he could achieve some other good in government.
He could have gone into coalition with Gordon Brown.
He could have done that.
Well, no, it's not, because he would have been able to keep his... actually, this is hypothetical, but I would have imagined that Gordon Brown would have been a lot more sympathetic to the idea of
an aggressive, slightly obnoxious thing to assume that the country which voted in majority for the Tories would then accept two parties who they don't necessarily agree with at all or don't ideologically mesh, and to say, actually, I'm going to decide that these two parties work. Yeah. I'm going to, that would be a lot of responsibility on his shoulders.
I know, but I'm someone who wants a second referendum, so there you go.
Well, let's move on to our main.
I'd like a referendum on a second referendum.
That would be fun.
I love referenda.
I think we should have a referenda every week.
Oh my God, that is such a good idea. Yeah. A referendum on whether to have the second referendum.
It's perfect.
Yeah. But serious point, they're a terrible idea, particularly for stuff like this, where the whole point of politicians is they know more about this stuff.
Yes, exactly.
And you kind of elect them to make decisions.
Yeah.
Which kind of comes into your leadership thing.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying. Old Clegg had got the point.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll definitely have a second referendum because the people who are in favour of it, Lord Adonis, Nick Clegg, Alistair Campbell, and Tony Blair. One of the great names,
by the way. You sort of forget because it's so, you hear it so often now, but Lord Adonis.
Yeah. He also looks like the antithesis of Adonis.
Someone calling a register going, Lord Adonis, and him putting his out going, don't take the piss. Lord Adonis? Lord Adonis?
It's quite mean to Lord Adonis.
He must have heard it before. Come on.
Well, listen, do you like a main course? Are you a man who's, what's your favourite main?
I will always eat a main course.
Are you quite a healthy eater?
I'm not bad. I'm quite good at the moment because I've got a film. I don't have to. I've chosen to, and also I'll get paid for it. I'm doing a job in Panama, and it's going to be really hot, and so I'm going to have to film in shorts and t-shirt.
Oh, so you want to look good?
I want to look.
Are you the new man of Del Monte?
Good. Yeah, in shorts and t-shirt. Yeah.
What's the new film?
And Panama hat. Not a film. It is a dating show for Channel 5. I've got to be there for a crushing 4 weeks.
And it's like a dating show in a jungle in Panama.
On a beach.
It's going to be idyllic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's basically their version to Love Island.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move on to the main, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
What are we consuming?
So we are consuming the thorny question of whether we are sort of blindly walking into a future where basically rich people have the option to genetically engineer their offspring to be better than poor people's, thereby entrenching inequality further. Ooh. So it's quite a cheery course.
It is. It's nice. It's quite Black Mirror-esque. Eugenics almost.
It's absolutely eugenics.
Very Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, Yuval Noah Harari talks a lot about this in Sapiens.
And Homo Deus.
Sorry, more in Homo Deus.
I've not read the second one, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because, it's exactly what you're talking about. I've got to ask you a question, though. If something was invented, right, because I know you're both sporty guys, that was initially invented for a guy who, say, had broken his leg, compound fracture, never going to be the same again, but it's kind of like a robot sort of clip-on for your leg, and it makes you faster, and then you could get one for Christmas. Would you?
I would fucking do it.
Yeah. Would you?
So hang on, is it replacing? Because there's an interesting. If you talk to the hardcore man-machine merging guys, transhumanists, there are people who think that there will be a future where actually robot limbs will be better than your actual limbs, so you will chop off a limb in order to get
on the NHS
new sick limb.
You could go and pay for it, but if you just chop the limb off, you can go straight to an NHS
but you'll probably
waiting room.
It'll be like NHS glasses. It'll be absolutely dog shit. It's not going to be a hand you want. Yeah. Whereas if you're paying privately,
you get a nice
sweet hand made out of titanium and everything.
Well, what?
So if it's just clip-on and it's making me go faster, of course. If I'm having to sever a bit of my own body, I think I'm going to pass.
God, that is crazy.
Is yours clip-on or is it sever?
Well, no, this one was clip-on.
I'll take a clip-on. Yeah.
I think the thing is that I'm a big sort of dystopia science fiction fan. So this is kind of an idea that's been going for an awfully long time. Nanotechnology, it's going to change your internal organs, the capacity of them, the opportunities for, like you've said in some of the stuff we read that you had sent through to us, the idea of being able to eliminate some disease before you're even born is crazy. Can you tell people a bit about that?
Yeah, so the premise really is that you might have a situation, almost certainly will have a situation, where you can choose in various ways to eliminate certain genes or even introduce certain genes. And that feels quite a big thing. but is going on in terms of sort of selection rather than perfection. That's what happens at IVF embryo screening. So you have a load of embryos, you do a kind of a genetic scan effectively before you choose which one to implant, and they will give you some statistics about that embryo, and that embryo might have a gene that predisposes it towards cystic fibrosis, and you would say, well, I probably won't go with that one, and that feels quite it feels quite comfortable. You go, yes, if we're screening for disease,
you're okay with that.
Yeah, and I think most people
But it's more than just disease, isn't it? Because you get hair colour and you get...
Yes, so at the moment it's only disease, and the question really is it's an ethical, moral, and legal question. Currently, you can't even. Well, this is interesting. You would not be allowed to have a gender-specific abortion, so you would not be allowed to find out. And this is probably less relevant somewhere like the UK, but you can see other parts of the world where it's very
India,
relevant.
Right.
India, China, possibly. Where you might abort a fetus because of its gender, and that's illegal in most places across the world. But it'd be much harder to legislate for something where you said you can pick an embryo, so you're just selecting, so you're not sort of terminating it. You're just saying, I'm just going to pick this male
that's what
embryo.
Yeah,
and I'm going to pick
They're
this
already
one
doing
that
that,
has.
aren't they? Isn't that already happening?
I think possibly in India and China, but I don't think it's sort of widely available. But it's, I guess my point is that it's a conversation that we absolutely have to be having, because it's going to become more and more relevant and possible. It's the possibility that is terrifying, because 10 years ago, all of this chat about genetic engineering and design of babies was sort of pie in the sky. Like we just didn't have the technology to do it. But since the discovery of CRISPR, which is a gene editing technology, and there are new gene editing technologies coming along that are even better than CRISPR, but they are incredibly accurate, and you can pinpoint genes and turn them on or off, take one out, replace it with another, and that opens up
really
a world
can have a designer.
A world of possibility.
Do you want to tell people about CRISPR who's maybe never heard of it before?
So CRISPR was discovered. It's slightly contentious, actually, who discovered it. But Professor Jennifer Doudna is widely credited, and her team. And they were looking at the way that bacteria defend themselves against viruses, and they used quite a clever technique that we've basically borrowed. And it goes in and acts like a little pair of scissors, and so it can just cut your DNA at a certain point, and then so you can take out a specific gene, and then you can implant another gene, or you can go in and there's various. It's like a little toolkit.
How do they do it with sort? How do they cut the gene?
I think it would be safe to say I can't explain it.
I can. They've got a little teeny pair of scissors.
Oh, that's what
and a little bit of Pritt stick, and they're like, oh, that's how
that's
DNA works,
essentially,
mate. Have you seen Jurassic Park?
Yeah,
the first one.
Yeah.
You know that weird thing that looks a bit
It's
like the
Honey, I
paperclip?
Shrunk the Kids. They just shrink the scientists and they go down.
It's like the paperclip on Microsoft Word, except really, really good.
It looks like you're editing a genome.
Do you need some help with this?
There's a good animation actually that I think I might have retweeted, which kind of shows how it works. But I think the actual details are pretty hard.
It's a bit more complex.
Yeah.
But they're using it already for serious diseases where you can only solve the problem of the disease in the baby if you have 3 parents, which allows you to snip in some genes from another parent. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's the 3-parent baby thing. It's a slight misnomer, but it's you take some. If you've got 40 mitochondrial DNA in an egg, you can get some healthy mitochondrial DNA from another, and then insert that.
So the kid then has 3 parents.
A straight swap. So there is genetic material from 3 people in it. That's not a that doesn't use CRISPR, actually, I don't think. And it's very, very tightly controlled at the moment. So you're not allowed to do any of this, like CRISPR gene editing, in a human embryo. So in 2015, there was a moratorium that the scientific community kind of signed up to, where they said, I think we should stop this. Yeah. Largely because the Chinese had just done, which they are, I've got to say, they get on with stuff. Yeah. They'd done a bit of tinkering with the human embryo.
But this is what
not non-viable embryos, so it's not.
What have they done?
I actually don't know what they had done, but they'd just done some tinkering within a non-viable embryo. But now, even in London, there's a team led by Kathy Nyakan at the Francis Crick Institute, and they've been given a license to do genetic manipulation on very early embryos, and they're looking at kind of developmental problems, and they're trying to. So it's all medicinal stuff.
Yeah. What are the Spurgeon issues or like?
I mean, for example, Asperger's. I don't know off the top of my head if that would be. Most interesting things are not monogenic. So and there's a real myth, and it's just partly due to bad science communication, bad journalism about the gene for intelligence, the gene for being a slut, the gene for whatever, and it's all bollocks. But there was the stuff that there was a this is probably 10 years ago when people were talking about the slut gene.
I remember.
I mean, I would love to see the advert. Are you a slut? We can turn it off, you dirty Ross. Can I say, there's two. When Rick sent this to us, I thought, it's very Gattaca. Remember Gattaca?
Yeah.
It's great movie.
It's so good. It's so prescient.
I mean, it
was
really
absolutely dismissed by the scientific community at the time, because at the time, the scientific community were mapping the human genome and thought, yes, your fate is in your genes.
Absolutely.
And Gattaca says, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
And the film is right.
I mean, great for spoiling the ending there. Okay. If you
Well,
want to check out the film.
No,
it's a very good movie. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. Uma Thurman and
Ethan Hawke.
And Jude Law. Don't forget.
And Jude Law, very good, isn't it? Yeah, Jude Law plays the guy whose material he borrows.
Yeah, it's true.
He got it to replenish his. No.
But the thing is, I have heard one particular story in this area, which is an amazing story, super positive, slightly different because, again, it's about the clip-ons, but something I would really, really love people to know about as well. Now,
can we call them strap-ons or not?
Look, yes, we'll call it strap-ons. You might feel a bit guilty about that in a minute. So one of the things that me and Heydon are really into, we've talked about, is the copyleft movement and open source information. And one such company that I saw given the platform at Wired's annual conference last year was Open Bionics. Have you guys heard of Open Bionics?
I have not.
So they're an amazing company, and what they basically have tried to do is they are trying to completely and utterly change the way that prosthetic limbs are seen. So the goal really is to make people, strap-ons, especially children, feel really proud to have their prosthetics. And what they did is quite amazing.
Feel a bit worse.
I mean, these are like literally 4 or 5 year old children. Anyway, whatever. Because the thing is, if you get, you've got
another running theme,
prosthetic, forearm that looks like a human being, it looks quite weird. Yeah. So what they did, and it is amazing, is they made a deal with Marvel and with Disney and with Lucas Films, and they've actually created like an Iron Man arm, Star Wars arm, a Frozen arm, and these things actually articulate. Cool. So when the nerve ending actually comes down, you actually see the hand moving. I'm just going to show you guys so you can actually see.
There was
look how cool this is. I mean, it is amazing.
There was a viral video of Robert Downey Jr. giving a kid the Iron Man arm a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is it's incredible.
And the amazing thing is about Open Bionics is that they are, they're a company that you can find out about, that you can go and volunteer with.
Is it all open source?
It is.
Open source software.
Totally. It's open source, so they're trying to share all their information.
That means thousands of hackers and coders around the world can improve the technology of the arm, and then they have to just release the source code of what they've worked on after they've done it. And
I met this amazing young girl called Sydney who had the Iron Man arm, and she was, I think, 7 at the time, and she said to me that she had gone from being bullied in the playground to being the coolest kid. Yeah, right. Because suddenly all the kids wanted to have an Iron Man arm, man. Yeah. And in a way, I know that sometimes, particularly when we're talking about automation at the minute and stuff, there's a lot of bad things. But this genuinely is a really feel-good story, and there aren't many of them,
It's cool when kids have it, but then the big problem is, talking about this legislation around this stuff, which in the West is very strict. This is what Nobuo Harari says, is that as soon as the Chinese decide to genuinely do it and put proper Iron Man arms on proper soldiers, everyone's going to do it, because the Americans aren't going to let the Chinese have a bionic army of 1 billion men with robo arms. They will just never let that happen. So suddenly we're all going to be doing it, and then Pandora's box is open.
I just don't know about this anymore. I've got to the point now where I just think that yes, to an extent, you know, this may be the case. I mean, we are still living in an age where Trump has just asked for a military parade. So, I mean, you know, who knows? But I just don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think we're going to be living in, you know, there's a character in the new Deadpool film that's coming out called Cable, who literally is this guy. He literally is the bionic man. Are these things just you're the scientist. Do you think this is really going to happen?
No, the military is developing like exoskeleton suits. Absolutely, and they're really interested in it because they use the tricky thing about exoskeletons. If they're incredibly heavy and hard to move, and so they're using AI within the suit to learn how the soldier moves, so that then it starts to replicate your walking patterns, and suddenly you're able to move around very easily. That's.
So is this like Ripley in Alien, or more like John Boyega in Pacific Rim? Like, what sort of vibe are we talking? Are they giant things?
No. So you'd want it to. These are roughly body size, so it's more like Iron Man actually.
Okay.
Without the flying.
Oh man!
Sorry.
John Boyega's not in Pacific Rim.
Oh my God,
I think he might be.
So not cool.
He's in the new one, isn't he?
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah.
Well, and also the F-16s they do this. So the new stealth F-16s, the pilot is plugged into the aeroplane, so he can see 360 degrees around him. He is the weapon. Like the pilot becomes the weapon. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the line for the new movie. He is the weapon.
And you know, we're choosing at the moment to have a if you like, human in the loop.
Yeah.
So you have your pilot
in the
there.
loop, out the loop, and on the loop is a scary thing, isn't it?
A ghost in the machine, if you will.
Well, in the loop, out the loop, and on the loop is about drones, isn't it? Where there are drones now that are armed, where there is no human on the loop whatsoever, and they could just do whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
And there's lots of those generally they're defensive. Yeah. So in like the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea, or like the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is entirely automated, but the sort of offensive weapons that are which don't have a human in the loop.
Or if you piss the defensive ones off enough, they might become a bit offensive.
The amazing ones
Very
are
true.
Like, anyone who hasn't checked
Everyone's
out
got limits.
the website of Boston Dynamic, which is a Google-owned robotics company.
They sold it.
They sold it, did they?
They sold it, which is very odd. Don't know why.
Well, it's amazing because me and Hayden have been kind of looking at these, and they're sort of fetishizing them in a way, because they started out looking like quite clumsy, clunky, kind of like Johnny Five, I'm Alive robot.
And now they're...
Also, can I just say about Johnny Five, I'm Alive?
Yeah.
I listened to this on Adam Buxton's podcast with Ramesh. Do you realise that the scientist in that film blacked up?
Was white.
Yeah, that was so bad.
I cannot believe ruined that film for me. Thanks,
so
Ramesh. Thanks, Adam. Can't believe you ruined that film for me. But they started looking like that. Now they look like iPods. They've just released one. All these like robot dogs are all like smooth edges, yellow plastic. Like, these things terrify me more than anything. Have you seen like robot dog?
I've also done a similar thing. I've just gone down a rabbit hole of watching loads of their videos, and they are
push him over.
They are
he's not going to fall over.
Insane. Well, they're doing like backflips and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And just like sort of jogging upstairs, because I've got such a vivid. Which was the car? Was it Honda that had the rubbish white robot?
Yes.
And whenever it did anything, it would sort of like stagger down some stairs, and you'd feel quite good about it. You're like,
thank God, the robot revolution hasn't
stupid robot.
Yeah. And now you go, oh. That's going up the stairs quicker than me.
That'd be good for old people, though. The knee robot.
Yes.
Find stairs very difficult. Well, there you go. That end on a. Maybe by the time our knees are gone, we'll have some extra robo knees. Who'd have
strap-on knees?
Strap-on knees.
I'd definitely take the robot arm. I'm telling you.
Who was I talking to? A guy who's a robotics engineer who was talking about just how prevalent robots are in everyday life, and they're just everywhere. And you think that when the robot revolution comes, the line will be "Hasta la vista, baby," but actually it'd be more likely to be "There is a bag in your bagging area. Please remove bag from your bagging area," and that'll be the final thing you hear before it rips you apart.
But it's it's really it's a great film, isn't it?
It's not as catchy.
It's because we are surrounded by artificial intelligences, like robots. Yeah, depending on how you define robots, but artificial intelligence is all around us. And we're very comfortable with it, and very comfortable with giving our data to it. My favourite.
Let's just talk to some now. Alexa, turn on Maroon 5.
It's that sort of thing, but like there's an amazing bit with.
I hate Maroon 5. Just attack it
when you do those capture things online where you have to prove that you're not a robot by identifying which squares have road signs in, seems like, what? What you are doing is training the artificial intelligence to become better at that.
Fuck!
That is what
we
is
should
happening.
all stop doing that.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Or keep getting
Do you know
it
how
wrong.
many times I get it wrong?
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Oh, shit.
That's good.
Maybe you are a robot.
I'm like, literally, that would make a lot of sense.
But yeah, robots are just like, oh, interesting.
Right, well, we have
to file that away.
That was a majorly meaty main, and we don't have that long for the dessert.
No.
So let's move on swiftly to our dessert.
Sure.
What have you brought us for our metaphorical sweetener?
This is quite meta. I think there are too many podcasts. Sorry.
Peak podcast.
I find it overwhelming, and I feel guilty when I haven't listened to podcasts that I know I'd like. I can't think of any example now.
News roast.
Oh, hang on.
Never listened to it.
Yeah. But you know what I mean, though? You just have a backlog of podcasts. Everyone that you know pretty much has a podcast. Yeah. And I'm sick of it. I'm slightly getting about it with books as well. Yeah. Like, I think everyone it used to be.
I think it's just your mates. All your friends have published books.
Yeah. No, so Rick, I went to Cambridge. My best friend's Tim Key. Everyone's published a book.
I mean, it's so boring. The new thing is.
I'm really down on my luck at the minute, guys. I'm going to Panama for 4 weeks.
Genuinely surprised that you guys haven't written a book.
Yeah.
You must.
Yeah, I've almost written 5.
Ah, good.
Yeah.
That's going to be Heydon's third act. Like, basically, from the age of, I reckon, about 50, he'll churn out so many books that it'll just be like.
I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
But the thing about podcasts, I do agree. It's like it's this sort of like a hyperinflation. It's like the Weimar Republic of podcasts. It's like they're completely worthless. Everyone has got a fucking podcast. They mean nothing.
I don't think we're anywhere near reaching peak podcast. I don't think you realise how many people have not even downloaded one podcast ever in this country.
There are so many podcasts that some scientists believe we might actually all be living in a podcast right now.
Yeah, I believe that.
The world is a podcast.
Very elaborate.
The thing that's amazing, I'll tell you some facts I didn't know. Do you know which country has the most expensive podcast advertising space?
Oh, I don't know. It's a good question. America.
Good
America.
question.
You're going with America?
Obviously America.
I'll go Sweden.
Sweden is the correct answer.
Why?
Sweden is the country.
I'm delighted.
Sweden is the country that was basically the place where podcasts first took off.
Yeah.
And in Sweden, advertising space around podcasts is incredibly expensive. Which country has the longest podcasts?
The longest podcast? Sweden?
No.
Oh.
UK?
No.
Ooh.
America.
Oh.
Where people like Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
Joe Rogan. Yeah.
Fucking Joe
That's
Rogan.
too much.
What do podcast experts put that down to?
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
No.
What?
Time of a commute.
Yeah, so
No way.
that makes sense.
Because
so Americans are just like, I'm doing my 3-hour commute. I'll listen to Joe Rogan.
But I mean,
might get through half an episode.
But it kind of makes sense because it's kind of like, you know, a lot of
they're all
people
just sitting in LA traffic, or they're like, you know, like,
Well,
why do Americans commute longer?
When I lived in Long Island,
No
like, literally,
no
they were just
traffic
like,
jam
hey,
structure,
it's no problem. It's just 2 hours into the city.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, I'm bothered if the Northern
that
Line's
is a
taking
problem.
more than
Need to
like.
get some trains, those fuckers, don't they?
It's apparently sense of distance.
They think the
limited
trains are
space.
too European.
Yeah. Those
Amazingly.
commie trains.
Yeah.
The thing is,
The socialist train.
The podcast model is quite strange as well because, like, usually the value of a podcast is determined by how many listeners it has, and obviously when you have an America, like Pod Save America, for instance, just came into the market and it exploded.
Yeah.
So really, it's the same as any other form of media, isn't it? If you make it in America, then suddenly
you get more money.
You get your money because you're suddenly, you know, more valuable. But it's
but I just don't understand why the advertising space is more in Sweden.
Because it has become one of the forms of communication. Like it's like they're just incredibly popular, and they have been for quite a while.
Yeah,
it's not like a new thing. It's also the home of Spotify, bizarrely. So it's
right,
kind of like there's a lot more. And I don't know if this is true. I'd quite be interested if any listeners could tell me. Apparently, they have the best broadband in Europe. I don't know if this is true or not.
Good on
Sweden.
But that would make sense to me.
It feels right. Yeah,
they do.
Also, I guess that now iTunes have released all of these analytics that seem to show people listen to podcasts for quite a long time, aren't bothered by the adverts or like reads and stuff. Like you just kind of accept them. That will make podcasts, because people were worried when that came out. Oh, this might be the death of podcasts, but actually it feels like
when the analytics came out.
Yeah, because they thought that it might show that people just switch off as soon as an ad or whatever. But it shows the opposite.
Right.
So advertisers will probably be more interested, and therefore the problem of too many podcasts will get worse.
Yeah. Are you getting loads and loads of views, listens on your podcast?
I think it does okay, but and I guess actually it becomes harder to expand in a crowded market. Although actually, what's good for us is there aren't that many decent science podcasts.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is helpful.
It's really lucky that not many people talk about politics and comedy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really lucky.
You have found a niche, guys.
But the thing is, I genuinely think that, isn't it good actually that podcasts have become much more like there's so many more of them? Because I mean, radio, it was like you get 2 minutes to say, there's no depth anymore, really. Like, and now, I like listening to Ramesh.
It's like
for
the new long read. It's like the new novel, because people don't read novels,
and
people are getting back into long reads now. And
exactly, I think that's exactly the same thing.
Trend,
I think. I guess as well, it's easy to be quite cynical about this, but what people I think like about podcasts is them being easy to listen to, and when you get to the end of a podcast you feel like you've learnt something, and you feel like, so it's a kind of commodification of knowledge, which is no bad thing. However, I think there's a counter to that, which is, and I'm definitely guilty of this, do you know Jamie Bartlett? Who's an absolute
Darknet,
great
amazing book. If you haven't checked it out,
Radicals is also excellent. He came up with the notion of TED-splaining. And I was like, God, that's me. That's everyone.
What is it?
And so TED-splaining is when you watch a TED talk, so 15 minutes, and then you sort of lecture people about the subject, like you are a leading expert in the field. And I think podcasts sort of do that. I think pod-splaining is probably a thing as well, where you listen to one thing, and you're like, I'll have that, and I'm gonna, and it's
out of interest.
That's my angle.
Let's be honest here, no lying, like genuine talk. What have you TED-splained the most about? I can tell you absolutely, definitely the two things.
What have you TED-splained?
So when I TED-splain people, and it's usually part of my chat, like date chat.
Do you do it on dates?
I'm being honest about it.
I'm 24.
I'm 24. That's what it says on my Tinder profile. Anyway, I go for the 2 TED Talks that have been banned.
Oh, okay. Go on.
So, War on Consciousness by the great Graham Hancock, and The Science Delusion by Rupert Sheldrake. And
both banned because they were
both banned because
really quite bad science.
Well, you can say they were. They're not empiricist science.
Oh, right.
They're normative.
What's the alternative?
Is Rupert Sheldrake the morphic resonance guy?
Yes.
That's right.
The guy who's like, if one rat learns to do something, every other rat in the world also learns it.
Listen, man, you're both
sounds good.
Empiricists.
Why is it that when people are looking at you behind you, you know they're looking at you? It's because of morphic resonance.
If you can't believe the fact that there is so much going on in science that the fact that
let's just establish this. On your dates, you quote the two
not
TED
all
Talks.
dates. I do it also at dinner parties. But my point
on a
is,
date, if you're staring into a girl's eyes,
I want to know what yours are. What are the ones the TED
Mine's
Talks
a good
you
one.
most TED-splain?
Yeah, same. Always on morphic resonance.
Mine's a good one because the TED Talk that I always quote isn't actually a TED Talk. It is my friend Nimrod Kamer, who we're all aware of, who printed up some foam TED letters, and he put them on a stage, and he got up, he talks like that, and he did an entire speech pretending it was a TED Talk, and then he cut in shots of audience members from actual TED Talks.
It's really, I mean,
and he put it online, and then he says to people at dinner parties, "I have a TED Talk," and then he can like reference it online if he.
I don't know what to make of that man at all. At all. I find him.
That means Nimrod has now been mentioned in this series almost 3 times.
Of course, though.
Right. What's your best TED-splaining? Do you do?
I think I do a bit. This is very mainstream TED-splaining. A bit from that Ken Robinson education.
Oh, that's one of the best ones ever.
Yeah, but Ken also Robinson's because my best friend is a headmaster, and so we talk about education quite a lot. But I still lean on the Ken Robinson stuff to ease myself into it.
I was going to say you can't quote TEDx's though, can you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You can't say this TEDx that I saw.
I would just use the word TED.
One of the biggest pars anyone's ever given to me was when I said, I did a TED Talk, and they just went, TEDx? And I went,
Have you heard of...
It's still very impressive to have done a TEDx. I haven't, or Jolyon.
Have you heard of the 10 TED Commandments?
No.
And did you know that, so basically, I can't remember
exactly.
It's a bit of a cult,
isn't it?
It's, oh my God, it's the biggest modern cult there is. It's the biggest intellectual snobbery cult. Yeah. And they also, they think they're like that movie, The Circle. Yeah. They invite you apparently to the campus.
They send you a tablet.
They send you a stone tablet with the 10 TED Commandments.
Like the Edstone.
Yes.
I missed the Edstone. Where is the Edstone?
Oh, mate.
It's great to think that the Edstone is somewhere.
Somewhere in one of some advisor's room.
Millibean's actually now got his own politics podcast as well. Which apparently where he just explains
reasons
politics.
to be cheerful.
Yeah, reasons to be cheerful.
I think he's probably quite good in it. I like him.
I like his vibe.
I wonder if
now.
he's using it as a tabletop. He's got a couple of trestle legs, and he's just using the Edstone as his breakfast table.
What his mistake was just not to be more actually how he is now.
Yeah.
When he was actually in power, I think it's just the anti-politics.
Yeah.
Am I tough enough? Hell yes, I'm tough enough. Tough enough.
That is, I'm not accepting that. It's not okay. That is not okay. Who would make jokes about Miliband's voice?
You stuck a post-it note on his back saying "kick me."
Kick me.
So I don't think you can.
Harsh.
Yes, I don't think you've got the moral high ground there.
No. Well.
So hang on, what are these Ted commandments?
I don't know what they are. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what they are.
Oh no, it's all sorts of stuff about like Chatham House type rules and stuff like that, and like being respectful. But they're also like
fuck a pig head or anything like that.
That's the last one. But it's like but it's like $5,000 a ticket to like a proper.
Is it?
Yeah, they're like insanely expensive.
Fuck. We better get comps somehow. Do you know what I mean? But no, it is. I mean, look, TED Talks are a great thing. They're one of the great things about the internet. To be honest, I love them. That Ken Robinson one you're talking about changing educational paradigms. One of the best things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Really genuinely is. And there are people that I would never have known about.
Still not as good as the new Nike ad though.
Oh my goodness. That advert is incredible.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Dicked all over Ken Robinson.
It's kind of a good Remainer video. It's like London.
Yeah,
like everything
it is.
It's. I think you can like fuck you.
Or I mean, it's slightly. Also, it could be seen as sort of quite isolationist.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's good about this country,
Yeah.
London.
London.
I'll tell you what isn't, the fucking rest.
I'll have a vote for London to what was our sketch again? Scotland and London.
Yeah, we just become part of Scotland
because they were both the remaining centres.
Scotland.
Well, listen, Rick, what have you got coming? But before, if anyone, which I'm sure you all already follow Rick on Twitter, but what is your Twitter handle?
@RickEdwards1.
And
don't know who got @Rick Edwards.
Yeah.
Tell me about the what's the title of the book, the latest book?
Science-ish. So it's based on the podcast, and we explore the sort of fringes of science through films. One of them we talk about is Gattaca.
Nice.
Planet of the Apes, talk about evolution, whether we ever get displaced by another species. The Matrix, are we living in a podcast?
The Matrix.
Some others.
I mean, genuinely.
So every chapter is a new film.
And then we talk three big science questions.
It's great.
And it is available now. I think it's very cheap on Kindle at the moment. So cheap that it feels like a failing model. Like I don't know how it can. I think it's £1.89 for a book that I slaved over.
Yeah.
You're gonna go that.
What
I feel
about
like
Michael
I get
Wolff?
mugged
So what
off
are the
here.
Michael Wolff as well. Like loads of people. Like as soon as Fire and Fury was busy,
Everyone
like, don't worry, there's a PDF.
Yeah.
I got sent the PDF.
But listen,
let's not
he probably
make
did
sure that
okay
doesn't
then.
happen to
Rick Edwards, thank you so much for
thanks,
coming
guys.
on our podcast.
Are you full after your courses?
I am. Yeah.
Absolutely intellectually stuffed. I'll go and just TED talk someone. What was it? TED Splain.
Ted's Blade.
Podsplain.
Oh,
Pod
goodness
Splain.
me. Well, listen.
Thanks, Rick.
And guys, please do us a favour.
Please review
and
it.
Please,
Like it.
please rate and review the podcast on iTunes.
Rating.
See you soon.
Rating you want.
Yeah.
Review, fine, take it or leave it. But ratings,
Does
that's what you
the
want.
reviews not really matter?
I think once you get a certain number of reviews, you're all
Right.
right. But you just want shitloads of ratings.
Okay, so rate us.
Even if they're low.
Right.
No!
Just rate us.
Good ratings.
Just
Troll
1 or 2
Edwards.
stars
We need
is
to
fine.
beat the algorithm. Please rate us. See.
Welcome to Beat the Algorithm. Thank you very much, guys. We will see you next week.
Okay, bye.